Paul Wilson, Dal Sam, and Logan Woolley. We will start our discussion by allowing each of the panelists to introduce themselves and give us a little bit of background as to what they do and maybe a little bit of how they got started in their business. So I'd like to start, let's go ahead and do that. Let's start from Dal this way and move towards Logan. So,
just how we got started?
A little bit. Introduce yourself again, the name and where you're from maybe and what you started.
All right, I'm Dal Zem. I'm known as Tim's dad when I'm on campus, which is quite an honor, actually. I actually went to BYU Provo and actually here at BYU Hawaii. I have a degree in special education and a master's degree in special education, and spent about 12 years running the Special Olympics program in Utah and ultimately ran the World Special Olympic Games in Minnesota in 1991. I finally came to a point that I realized I had to work for profit instead of a nonprofit as I had a growing family and it was getting harder and harder to meet just the costs of having a family. And we started a business at the time that we bought used Levi's from the Desert Industries, the Goodwill Industries, and ultimately set up locations all over the western United States and imported them to Europe and sold them in the fashion markets in Europe. And that was really what got us a start. I picked up and moved my family to Europe really on a whim, and over the next 3 or 4 years built kind of a fairly large import business in Europe dealing with specialty American, more or less vintage clothing. That's kind of where I got my start.
My name is Joe Berardi. I'm a BYU alumni. I graduated here in 1989.
That's a BYU-H alumni.
Yeah, that BYU-H alumni, excuse me. International business with a Chinese minor, Mandarin Chinese. I served my mission in Argentina, and it was just a fluke that I had an opportunity between semesters to go to Taiwan, where I fell in love with the culture, the people, and decided when I came back to go to school, I ended up here, that I wanted to take Chinese. Back in the 80s when Japanese was the big push, but I just felt that Chinese was eventually going to be a great market. My wife and I, Susie spoke earlier today, we both worked at PCC, and we were blessed with great opportunities at PCC to work our way through college, and it was while I was the retail manager, cultural retail manager at PCC while I was a student. It was just a fluke. I had no experience. They put me in the position. But once I was there, it dawned on me that that was my niche, that was something that I wanted to do. I wanted to produce products and bring it to market. So as soon as we graduated, we opened up a store in Waikiki, which led to other stores, which led to other opportunities. And 23, 24 years later, we have a distribution manufacturing business out of China and the Philippines, and we supply products to all the major retailers here and on the West Coast.
My name is Paul Wilson. I actually got my start in something like this. I went to BYU Provo and entered into their very first business plan competition in 2000. There was 4 of us in the company, and we won the competition they also had a statewide one as well. And at the time, I was getting my degree in philosophy, and I was going on to law. And so when we were putting together the management for our company, they said, well, we need someone to fill marketing. And so that's where I got put. And I fell in love with marketing. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And the competition actually helped launch myself and the 3 others, and we got to do that company, and I got to really focus in marketing, and I decided I wanted to change my degree. Went in and found out that I would have to have another 2 years of school, so I just went and graduated in philosophy. And from there, really put my focus in internet marketing, particularly search engine optimization. That's really where my niche is, dealing with search engine marketing and new media marketing. And one of the business partners from that venture, he and I started a digital media development company about 6 years ago, and it's a very unique, we don't take on any clients at all. We do everything in-house. We build out our web properties, and because we have the marketing ability, we really promote it and take the revenue streams from that. And a kind of a side thing that we didn't anticipate, but larger companies come along and see us at the top of Google and Bing, and instead of wanting to do all that work, they just write a big check and buy the web property from us. And that's not really necessarily our business plan, but that's kind of the outcome from our business efforts. And so I am extremely passionate when it comes to the internet and doing business on the internet and the things that are out there for anyone to do it. It's the great equalizer when it comes to business, in my opinion. I appreciated the talk about no excuses, because really there are no excuses these days with all that is out there. So that's me.
Hi, my name is Logan Woolley, and I graduated from BYU Hawaii not too long ago. I always knew that I wanted to work for myself, start a company, and so shortly after graduating, my wife and I should give you just one prior experience. I had a small company where I was sourcing products for U.S. companies. So they would call me and say, hey, we want to make chairs, and I'd say, okay, I'll help locate some factories in China, make sure they're good. And one day I got a phone call from a U.S. company saying, we need help finding very high quality human hair. And I said, I don't know anything about that, but let me look into it, and I did. And I went back to them and presented and said, hey, guys, I think this is a really great opportunity. And for whatever reason, they chose not to move forward. And so it was right then and there that I knew I had to jump on this opportunity. And so my wife and I, we had zero money. I think, it's a whole nother story of how we got going. But what we did have, we bought a whole bunch of human hair and turned our little house into a warehouse. And over the years, it's done okay. And now we're manufacturing hundreds of products and distributing thousands of other types of products, really within the beauty industry. So that's how we got started.
Great, thank you. See, we have a lot of variety here at background, and this should make things available for you to ask questions in many, many areas. I don't know if everybody's expert in everything, but hopefully some of the things that we'll share will be helpful to you. We'll start out with the question that I'll ask in just a minute, but any of the audience, if you would like to ask questions, would actually like to have you come up here and use the microphone. So I'll just turn it, and you can ask it here. So if you're thinking that you want to come up, why don't you come right, if something comes into your mind, come up here to this front row so you can come up to the microphone in just a moment. Okay? And when you do that, introduce yourself as well. Just say your name if you won't do that. Okay, let me ask this first question. Logan, I'm going to start with you, and we'll work back here. If you were to start a brand new company today, what are the skills you would look for in a partner? And I may let probably all four of you be thinking of the same thing, so I'll allow time for each to talk to that point.
I've always been told not to have partners. So,
Amen.
But if I did have a partner, I would look for somebody who was very different than myself. And I'm even though I don't have any partners today, when I hire, that is exactly what I try and do. I try and find people that are not like myself. For example, the president of the company is a very, very detail-minded person. He looks at every penny. He knows where every dollar is. And myself, I don't ever look at the bank accounts. I don't know what's in there. I'm a creator. I'm not a day-to-day operations guy. I'm just not talented at that. So I would always look for somebody who is different than myself.
I
It's interesting that advice. I've heard it as well, but I won't do a business venture without a partner because I know my weaknesses. And so I have had multiple partners over the years, and what I could only echo a lot of what Logan has said. My current business partner, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why we are so successful on both sides, because he is opposite to me in regards to business. And what's great is that causes friction in a positive sense where you get two like-minded people. I had a partner like this where we were very, very similar, and her and I ran in the wrong direction very fast. And my current partner, John, helps make sure that we're running in the right direction, maybe not as fast, but still successfully. So looking for someone who complements my weaknesses, but also who is open to new things, because that's the one thing that I appreciate about my business partner, is that he does allow my crazy ideas some freedom and to soar and to explore and to take a look at things. And I think that's crucial, and that's one of the things that's really helped us be successful, is having that mutual respect of each other and where we're strong and where we're weak.
I think that's a real tricky question with regards to partner. I'm kind of like Logan. I've had partners in the past, and when there was nothing on the table, it was great. And as things developed and grew, there became problems. I think serial entrepreneurs, those of us that create, if you look at an entrepreneur, you don't just have one idea. You have lots of ideas, and we're really good at creating. And I think when you understand your weaknesses and you understand entrepreneurs are not necessarily good managers. And so instead of having a partner, what we've done is we've hired people that have worked for us under our direction, but you want to hire people who are good at what you're not good at. And normally, in my instance, because I love to create and I'm always on to the next thing, you need someone who's a good manager, who's very detail-oriented, who can actually run the business. And like Logan said, if you're, an entrepreneur who's really into expressing themselves and going out and creating stuff, doesn't mean we're very good in the office, doesn't mean we're really good at personnel issues, doesn't mean we're very good at numbers and making sure you're profitable and stuff like that. We know those are important things, and recognizing that is key. But having a partner who has equity in the company, we've just learned over the years, usually it hasn't really worked out really well for us, but I think finding people who complement your weaknesses is very important.
Yeah, I agree with all that, but for me, if I have to take a partner, I want someone with lots of money. Because, your greatest restriction in your growth is always capital. And so if you can knock the capital side of it out in a way that allows you to grow and grow aggressively, you've solved about 99% of the battle. In fact, most of you that are starting a company, you're going to find out you're a fundraiser first and foremost. And if you're a good fundraiser and you can raise capital, because I don't care how much money you don't have enough. It just always takes more than you have. And as you get bigger and bigger, maybe you have a lot to start with, but you'll run out of it soon because you'll just get bigger and bigger and grow. So if you're going to take a partner, at least have access to capital. And that will certainly make your life a lot easier.
Actually, let me kind of build off that for next question. Again, if any of you are thinking of questions, come on up here, because I don't want this just to be my questions. I want it to be student questions. But building on what you said, Val, is what would you say would be some of the most effective tools to raise capital? And would you do it through equity or through loans, through debt? And if equity, how much should you be willing to give? So let's rather Dal, we already got a little bit, you'll be thinking of maybe repeat. Let's start with Joe. And go that way, we'll come back to you, Dal.
I think debt over equity, because you're always going to give too much away. You're familiar with Shark Tank, and you've looked how the sharks kind of approach things, and you see as the individuals walk in there how much they're willing to give away in equity when they really don't have much to give away at all. When there's no money on the table, it's easy to give away something that's not there. And there's the saying about giving, owning a little bit of a lot versus owning a lot of nothing. So I prefer to take on debt because I can work with that. But giving equity away, I've always learned you will regret it. I mean, we had to buy out a partner down the road, and it cost us a lot to buy him out. Because when we originally created this project with him, there was nothing on the table. And he brought a connection to us. And we were willing to give away at that time 33% of something that we built, managed, worked, created an extremely successful line of products. But years later, we realized that we had just given, and this guy had to do nothing for it. So it was very poorly structured in the beginning. But at the time, 33% of nothing was nothing, really. But as it grew, it became quite substantial. So down the road, we decided that we had to buy him out before it became too great, and that would have been a cause of friction. So I'd rather take on debt than give away equity.
Paul?
Yeah, I would, given those two choices, I would agree. But I believe there's a third choice, and we talked about this over lunch, and it's something that really deals, that your generation has launched out, and that's, if I were to do something and start over and test to see if this was a very viable solution, I wouldn't want to give away equity, and I wouldn't want to go into debt. I've seen the challenges that have crippled companies over debt, and I would take advantage of crowdfunding. I don't know how many of you are familiar with crowdfunding, but there's big sites like Kickstarter.com is one, Indiegogo is another, but basically you put your idea out there, and instead of giving away equity, you say, I will give you my product at a discount rate if you believe in this vision. And this, to us, as we've tested this, we've looked at it, we think it's a fascinating idea. It's really a market indicator of how strong of your idea. I mean, are people willing to say, okay, I will put money into this? And those of you that aren't familiar, one of the most popular ones from Kickstarter was an iPhone watch called Pebbles. And they were looking to raise $100,000, and they were selling their watches to anyone that would believe in their prototype for $100, but they now sell them for $250, and they raised $16 million without having to give away any equity or go into debt, and really all they did was do pre-sales of their watch. So if that would be adding a third choice. And
I don't know if you know, one of our students raised over $100,000.
I heard the bamboo watch. That's what I heard when I was talking about. But that's, I'm a firm believer in crowdfunding. Good point.
Okay.
I don't want to complicate things, but there is a fourth option, and which worked very well for myself, and it's called bootstrapping. So my wife and I, again, we had zero money to our name. We did have a car. I think it was worth $3,000, Honda Accord, and again, I wish I had time to tell you this other story, because I think a lot of the people up here would tell you there was some luck involved, or we also call it blessings. But bootstrapping would allow you to not have to take on any debt and not have to offer any equity, which is exactly what I've done. So I've held on to 100% of the company, and what you're going to have to do, though, is recognize that you may not be able to grow as quickly, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. After 9 years it's been for us, we're doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and again, that was debt-free from day one. So it is possible to do it. It would obviously depend on what your product is, your category, industry, but that is possible.
John?
Well, I've done it both ways, and there's really advantages to both. I spoke here last year, and I don't know if any of you were there, and we talked about how you create wealth. The wealth isn't really earned, it's created, and it's created by perception. A company that we invested as a venture fund not too long ago, the inventor that was behind this created a brilliant technology, and he put his thumb in the air and basically said, it's worth $60 million. And then he came to a group of us as investors, and we agreed with him. And overnight, he personally developed a net worth of, by the time he sold maybe 10-15% of the company off, he had a personal net worth of over $50 million by creating wealth. And so by taking equity at times, by creating a share structure, I've built a number of companies where I will start with a share structure of say 5 or 10 million shares, of which I will own 90% of them. And then if I can go out and say raise $1 million at $1 a share, I've effectively established my value of say $9 million of my personal ownership in equity. Now, am I beholden to shareholders? Yes, I have to run a company and I have to make it profitable and I have to give returns. But as long as I can make that company worth more than that value or find an exit or a buyer, I can create wealth faster that way than I can necessarily bootstrap. But I love the idea of bootstrap. I've done that as well in a number of companies. But wealth is something, if like the Federal Reserve can just create wealth, well, so can you. And it really, what it is take a brilliant concept, a great idea, give it some legitimacy by creating a stock offering, and build it where it's value. And, like J Sports is a good local company, most of you know. They've built enough momentum behind that now, they could certainly create a stock structure, create stock, and actually give themselves a little bit of liquidity, a little bit of ability to sell some of their personal shares, and ultimately create a structure whereby you can then take that company to a much bigger market and sell it to maybe some of the big surf companies or something like that. So there's a lot to be said for how you create wealth in really, it comes down to ultimately the structure, how you build and sell and market your business.
And I know I'm the moderator, but I got to give something else that's a fifth point of view. I've been involved with many companies, but I want to just say one other structure that hasn't been mentioned. And I've been in the self-storage business in particular, but I've been involved with creating lots of LLCs, limited liability corporations. And we have done some which is where you change a partnership over time. In other words, we had some very strong financial partners who put in basically all the money, and at the beginning they owned the majority of the company by far. It would be, let's say, a 90-10, where we did all the work and got some fees. They own 90% and we own 10%. But after they got a certain percentage, or they got enough of a return, we modified the ownership. So I just want to bring that up. That's another structure. So after a certain point in time, we had a preference given to us, or what's called a promote, where instead of being 10%, we were now 40% owners. They were 60%, even though they had put in basically all the money. So, and there's all sorts of levels like that. The reason I bring it up is so many of you might go, well, it's a partnership or even a stock offer. They do change their solutions over time, but just be aware, it doesn't have to be set in stone when you set it up. Okay? Are there any questions so far? I have some more questions, but I want to take questions from the audience. Why don't you come on up here? Say your name, and then ask your question. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jay. Jay from South Korea, and I'm a accounting major. I just have a question. First, how many of you use smartphone or tablet? All of you? Okay. So I learned from the school that getting market information is really critical in setting strategies and running the business. So what type of smartphone app do you use, and how do you use it to keep yourself informed about the market? That's my question.
Let's start with Paul. Come on, Paul.
Yeah.
He's one of our app.
That's a great question, because really being able to keep up with your industry is vital. And I have a strong opinion on where we are with the mobile. It's not as strong as I think it can be with businesses. But I think I want to modify that question a bit, and it's really the apps that I utilize to help me in what I do. Because I still very much use the internet to keep up with the, and so really Google in a lot of ways. And Google has been the #1 factor of using Google Alerts and stuff like that, and keeping up with the blogs that are in my industry. And one of the things that makes smartphones and tablets so much fun is that's what they're built for, is for the entertainment. No longer are we just using it for the phone. And so some of the functionality, most of the functionality, if you look at the iTunes Store for Apple, you would have well over 80% that are focused around games and entertainment purposes. You still have a lot of other stuff there. So for myself, in my industry, particularly social media, I really utilize Twitter and Google and Facebook to see the trends that are going on with new media, because that's what I'm in. We just developed a new social media tool for Pinterest, and so really dealing around with the social media is what has been best for us. But when it comes down to an app that I use for business, I absolutely, everywhere I go, and what has made my tablet the best is the Bamboo app, and it's really a note-taking, just because of the compact, and it makes it so I can write instead of having to type, and then pretty much the social media aspects, because that's what I do for my job.
Others want to respond? Logan?
Oh, nothing unusual that I use. I use my flashlight a lot to read, so I don't get my wife other things. Nothing industry specific that I use. One thing that I would recommend to you guys, though, something that I often do, is I subscribe, and they're all free, to a lot of podcasts. And there's so many great small business, entrepreneurial podcasts that you can subscribe to. And I listen to them when I'm exercising, or I'm traveling, or it seems like there's always a little bit of downtime during the day. And so check out some of those podcasts, and hopefully we can all give you, I'll give you my email address at the end, but if you have any specific questions, I can send you some of my favorites.
Great, thank you.
There's, I'm in the import business, and so there are certain things that I have to be kept abreast of, and which is currency rates. If you're dealing internationally and you're dealing in foreign currencies, you need to keep abreast of where the fluctuation of currency is, because as you do business cross-border, your prices may change, and this is specifically true in China, where things are fluctuating. There's another one, an app that I use, is called Import Genius, which allows me to track my competition shipments. I know where the competition comes, it shows me where they're shipping stuff, who they're shipping it from, and who their suppliers are. It's totally legal, it's all public domain information. So there's an app that actually shows you where you can key into your competition, and you have to pay for it. It's not a free app, it's a very expensive app, but it tells you what was on their last shipment and who their suppliers were. Now, these guys are getting smart and they're masking who their suppliers are, but there's apps out there with public domain information that allows you to track your competition and find out what's going on with them.
It's a cool app.
I'm a dinosaur. The phone and email is about all I use on my phone.
Okay, other questions? Who else wants to come up? Come on.
My name is Ben Erica. So my question is, what kind of habits do you have on a daily basis that help you stay successful? And what kind of habits should we work on in our youth to help us become successful?
Great question. Yeah, come on.
No, just get rid of the video games. They're just huge time wasters. So is golf. You know? No, it's, you know, your time is your most valuable resource, and you can fiddle it away playing video games all day long. And it's not, you know, my generation, it wasn't an issue for us, but I see this, you know, this generation that's coming up now, and you spend far too much time on Xboxes and video games, and these are critical years to get your foundation, and you just don't have time to waste. Just get rid of it, throw it away.
This is a key point that when I give talks to business students specifically, I like to point this out. right now in your young career, you're starting and everything, you're building your character. And I always talk to BYU students and I always ask them, what type of employee are you right now? With regards to whatever job you have, whether you're a janitor on campus or you're working at PCC, scooping ice cream or whatever. That tells a lot about the type of business person you're going to be or employee that you're going to be. Just because it's not an important job, maybe it's not a job that's going to pay you a lot. Do you give 110%? Are you developing the characteristics now that will follow you into your own career? Those things that you're building upon now are going to enable you to be successful, to utilize your time correctly, to give 100%, to be totally honest in everything that you do. Those characteristics that you're building upon now will determine whether later on you will be successful or not. So whether it's what you do with your time, what you do with other people's property, how you treat your employer now when it's not a very important job, you must become indispensable. You, if you're the janitor and you're working grounds crew, should be the best janitor that BYU Hawaii has ever seen. I guarantee you, once you leave that mundane, irrelevant job and move off into your own business career or working for someone else, those are the little bit of characteristic traits that will follow you and will make the difference in how successful you'll become.
Ditto. I like this crowd because I can say this. The very first thing that I do in my daily habit is to read my scriptures and to talk to my Heavenly Father. And you know, I can genuinely and truly say that I've not always been the most motivated person. I've gone and squandered many hours on the video games, and you know, and have done things that have not progressed me in the direction that I wanted to go. But I have a very loving Heavenly Father who, as I make Him the partner in my business, has guided me to where I am today. And I truly attribute the success of my company and where I am at in my life to by making the Lord first. And so, you know, anything else that you do can make you successful, but it can't necessarily make you happy. And I think that is by far the most important habit that you can create, and to not be casual in it, to do it every day. I mean, it's the primary answers that we always hear, but I promise you, if you read your scriptures daily, you will have avenues open up to you that you never thought imaginable. And I can testify to that, and the fact that I know that's the case for what I've done in my own life. So that would be the single greatest habit that I would recommend.
Good point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I have probably grown the most in my life when I do spend the time and I pray and I read the scriptures. I've come to learn, or at least my belief, reading the scriptures is hard enough, but to read the scriptures on a daily basis, I think, if we were all honest here in this room, maybe not even on, I just don't think everybody is as good as they should be. And the difference between reading your scriptures a few times a week versus every single day, it makes a big, big difference for me personally. One other thing just that I'd suggest too is something that's helped me is exercise. I know it's you probably right now you're thinking you're young and it's hard to gain weight but I do believe in exercise, and I think when I exercise in the morning, similar to reading the scriptures, those two events, I just feel like I start my day off right, and I have a lot more energy, my mind feels clear, and so those are two things that have really helped me in my life, two habits.
Great, thank you. I'm going to add one too. I get to be up here so I get to say things. I think a great thing to do is to write things down. Take notes. I find that I'm a way better learner and listener if I just write a couple of notes. So I hope some of you out there are doing it when you're hearing from these experts that we have. Anyway, just another thing to add. Who else? Todd?
Hi, I'm Todd Everett. All right, so I had a question. I developed a business plan and it involved dealing with the state, and it's been kind of frustrating. So I was wondering if you guys, you professionals, have any experience dealing with the state and if it's worth it or not.
State of Hawaii?
Yeah,
Okay.
or I mean just, government in general.
Well, I mean, state of Hawaii, being from Hawaii, being incorporated in Hawaii, yeah, any government organization has wonderful potential. However, you have to learn their system. And there are programs out there to help businesses. And if you happen to be a minority, even better, because there are different categories that you can fit into that allows the state and federal government to give you priority over other businesses out there. It's something that you need to go through. But the state offers courses that is given to businesses that allow you to understand their procurement programs and how you can qualify. But a general answer to that, if you are a minority or a woman-owned business, that is why my wife was the vice president for many years in our business, and in 2010 we moved her into being the president of the business because that opened opportunities for a minority-owned business in Hawaii to go to the government and do projects at 25% more over the next bid. In other words, if there were two companies that went to the state and said, here's a project, and I bid $100,000, and the next guy bid $75,000, they'd have to give it to me or to my wife. And we are one. So the state of Hawaii, the state of Hawaii has programs set up in their Department of Economic Development that will teach you how to get into their system and understand their sets of protocols, their requirements, etc. The federal government's similar and even more complex. If you can crack that code and you can actually get in there and play and do business their way, they have huge contracts out there. They budget all this money and they're just waiting for people who are qualified. And doesn't mean qualified in business, but qualified in their procurement program. If you follow all their crazy steps, then you have great opportunities to land some big contracts.
Can I follow up with that question? It sounds dangerous to go into business with your wife, but it sounds like it's effective.
Yeah.
Depends on your wife.
It depends on your wife. It depends on your wife.
No, the real question was, about the bidding process. If you're making a bid, is that? That is the main core of your business was making those bids, correct?
Well, it's the main, if you're dealing with the federal government or state government, it all comes down to meeting their criteria of whatever they're asking for. And then the final thing is you make a financial bid to them on goods and services, and then they take a look at who you are if you're established in business and what your bid number is. And then based on your classification, if you're a minority-owned business, there's Super 8 and 8 in the federal government. If you're if you have Hawaiian ancestry, American Indian, or Native American, Eskimo, or Hawaiian, and you go through their program, which is called Super 8, and you bid on a project, you are allowed to be 50% higher than the next bid. So if you're a little company and you walk in and you are competing against big guys and you think, I'll never get this business. People don't know what each other bid, but you can rest assured that if you're 50% higher than the next guy, because you are a Hawaiian ancestry, American Indian, or Eskimo, the federal government by law has to give that bid to you. So there's great opportunity. You just got to know how to qualify for it.
So anyone but a white male.
Yeah. That's why we come to BYU Hawaii and marry a brown girl. Sorry.
Okay, well.
That wasn't the reason I married her.
Okay. Let me ask another question here. Do we have somebody else ready to come up for a question? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Nathan. My question is twofold. It's dealing with partnerships. And so when you are seeking a business partner for a new venture, what qualities and expertise do you look for in them? And then if somebody approaches you for a business to become a partner for them, how do you determine whether or not you follow through with that, whether or not you accept their offer?
I'll fill
Or
that.
I know your partners are what?
We talked about the qualities that we necessarily look, and so I think that's somewhat covered. But I think one of the most important things in your second question is it something that you are passionate about? That's something that you want to do? One lesson that I learned early on is that opportunities come and go. What matters is timing. And so, partners are a tricky thing. I've had a lot of partners, and it has to be right. And so, if you have any reservations about it, if you feel, I know in one partnership we have about a third of the equity, at 1/3 of the equity, and we do 100% of the work. And there's a lot of misgivings there. And it was something we learned to say, hey, we're not going to do this again. And when you have those sort of misgivings, it just complicates everything. And so I can see why these gentlemen, state, I will not take on partners, I will take on managers and whatnot. So for me, it's important that I have someone that complements my weaknesses, as stated earlier, but taking on the opportunity, make sure the timing's right and it's something that you love to do.
Can I just mention one thing that I didn't mention before about partnerships? I think when you're creating a partnership, or actually when you're getting into business at this level, the wisest money you will ever spend is talking to a good lawyer. And when you create a partnership, one of the first things you create is an exit strategy. When everyone's friends, you go in there and you say, how are we going to dissolve this partnership down the road? That is the smartest money you will ever spend, because once it's all laid out legally and everyone signs their name to it when nothing is really on the table, then you have a clear structure if down the road someone wants to be bought out, if there's a death or there's a change or friction or whatever. So the best money that any young business could do with regard to a partnership is create that exit strategy from the very beginning.
Yeah, recognize that with the exception of all partnerships end. and it's just the nature of business. I've had a partner for 24 years, and ultimately we went different ways. And a fantastic partnership. All partnerships end. What we've done, Jeff stand up, Dave stand up, Kent stand up. I love partners. These are my partners, and Richie Norton's another one. We go after the best, the brightest, the smartest. There's Richie. I didn't see you back there. We go after the best, the brightest, the smartest guys that are committed to the gospel first, their families, and have all their priorities right. You know what? It's fun to go to work. We've got the best circle of men and women to deal with, and a great partnership just makes work and getting up and doing it fabulous. But we've learned to spot the exact type of personality that we want, that works with us, and you can just light a fire and it just takes off.
I'll also say, I've taken on partners on different projects now, and partners it is just like your marriage. If you're not married yet, you'll learn that it's a lot about communication, and oftentimes it's better just not to even fight the battle. You let them go, and things just work out. The time that partnerships go wrong, at least in my experience, is when greed starts to creep in. But if you really want to learn about how to structure your company, one book that I would suggest that you read is called Founder's Dilemma. And And it's a great book. It'll teach you everything you need to know about how to create that partnership, how to set it up, what different methods you can use, and that'll be a great resource for you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for maybe one more question. Anybody else want to come up? Operator.
Hello, my name is Alfredo. I have a business for you, plus team, is that right? So,
Yep.
what's your biggest failure?
Oh, I've had so many.
And what you learned from it that you will apply?
Well, I just learned to get smarter, I guess. It's all of us could go through our business careers, and man, we've had some monstrous failures, and we built a company called Whisper Creek Log Homes. We were huge. We became the biggest log home company in North America until we weren't. It's like one day the phone just stopped ringing, and all the banks dried up, all the capital dried up, and we had 500 home sales on the books, and that year we ended up building 40 homes. Next year we built 13. And it was an extremely well-run company. It was a fantastic company. We became the standard in the industry, and overnight you're wondering how you're going to make your mortgage payment. And so not everything works, and it took me 7 years to dig out from that hole. But in the end, all the shareholders have got repaid. We stepped up and made sure everybody was made whole. And so just because things go bad doesn't relieve you of the responsibility and obligation you have to people who trusted you, invested with you, and so at the end of the day, when things go bad, that's when you learn to be a businessman. But it went from huge success to a huge failure in a matter of days. And that's the way it goes.
Anybody else want to say?
Yeah, I think we all have examples of it. The one, and when I talk to business students, and so I didn't take my own advice, but this was years later, that we had a project that came to us that we thought was going to be a slam dunk. We knew it was going to be a winner. And we had an opportunity to work with a very famous artist who had created a sculpture that had won awards. And this sculpture had been related to a market industry that was huge, billions of dollars worth of sales within this industry, and we knew it was going to be a success. And so we didn't do any real market testing or anything. We went ahead and we produced the product, and we had it shipped in by container. So we had thousands of these wonderful things, and they're gorgeous and they're beautiful. I'm not even going to tell you what they are. And for the life of us, we couldn't sell them. We could not sell them because we hadn't taken our own advice and we hadn't done the market research. So you don't need to go out and invest a bunch of money on something you know it's going to work. But you do your market research first, and you have your focus groups, and you talk to people, and you talk to your suppliers, and you talk to the people who buy from you, and you find out, should I actually invest my money and time and prototype this product? But we thought we were smart enough, and we knew it was going to work. I want to touch on just one thing that Dale said here. Is your integrity as you become businessmen and women. Stick to your word, even if you lose money. If your poor planning has resulted in a loss to you, you must keep your promises and fulfill your commitments to those that you have done business with. The moment you don't, your business career might as well be over. Because if you become known as someone who breaks their promise or does not fulfill a contract, word will get around, especially if you live in a little place like Hawaii. But even within your business community, even if you have to take a beating on it, a financial loss, you make sure that you make your shareholders whole, or you fulfill your contract. You do everything that you have promised someone to do. And by doing so, they know that you are a person of integrity, and business will come back to you.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for this wonderful panel, and let's give them a round of applause. We'll be back. We have about a 10-minute break. to hear from Brother Mark Willis, as well as announce our finalist winners. So I'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
I would love to buy a log cabin.
I can still make
It was great. So what did you do? It really was. It was fun to watch you guys.
Thank you.
What was the name of your business plan again?
It was CityNet Systems.
Okay, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, I was not new, but almost new. I joined the center in 1997 as its founder.
Okay.
And,
Yeah, because it was 99 when it launched, but they awarded it 2000, so yeah.
anyhow. So what's the name of your venture now?
The parent company is Streamfire LLC. The marketing side is Question Media.
That's perfect. Well, thanks guys.
Thank you.